Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Love Selling, Hate Sales. I'm your host, Josh Wagner. As always, opening is one of the most difficult things to do in sales. It's tough to start conversations with strangers. There's no question about it. And it's one of the things in sales that gets a lot of attention. And we probably don't talk about enough on this show because, frankly, it's not my specialty. So what we're going to do today is talk a little bit about opening, and not just opening when there is a strict process, there's a strict script, there's a strict training program and onboarding program. But what happens when you have to open for a product that is new? Nobody's heard of you. Nobody knows what you're saying, what you're doing. Is your goal always the same thing every time? Is there something different than just setting a meeting? So we're going to deviate from the standard guru, expert, ninja, 20 years in the business person that we usually have in the show. And today we're going to have Sam Absalom, who is a sales associate with CRE One Source out of Scottsdale, Arizona. Sam, thanks for joining the show. Really appreciate having you. Yeah,
appreciate you letting me on the show, Josh. Excited to join.
Yeah, so this is going to be super fun. So Sam and I pseudo work together, right? CRE One Source is a software company that I happen to be on the advisory board of. So I get to spend time with Sam pretty much every Friday at 2:00 in the afternoon Pacific time. And we talk sales strategy. And what's super fun is, as a new software startup, one of the things we're doing is just testing stuff, right? We're testing messaging, we're testing positioning, we're testing our value prop, we're testing all of these things. And Sam is literally on the front line taking the bullets. So Sam, first things first, how many calls are you making per week right now?
Well, dials per week are looking close to $1,000 a week. Now,
Wow.
Given that is in the context of my handy robo dialer that helps me out there by calling a few people at once.
Yeah.
So that's not manual. It used to be manual, but we changed over to robo dialer a few weeks ago now.
Very good. And, I think the manual, you were getting about 500 a week. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. So give the audience a little bit of background here. Like just tee it up. Where'd you come from? How'd you fall into this? And I kind of want to just get into some stories and things that we've talked through as we've experienced this together.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think it's always a necessary precursor to mention that I'm definitely not from the United States. Otherwise, people get kind of confused. Lived obviously from England originally, and lived in various different states across the U.S. And recently just graduated from Grand Canyon University, so GCU, in Phoenix, Arizona. And I finished literally in April of 2022. So that was about 4 months ago now.
So how'd you fall into a sales associate opportunity with One Source?
Yeah, just connections. Got connected with a very well connected man at GCU who has his hands on lots of different startup communities. And he knew Craig, who's the CEO of our company. And I got connected with Craig and Charlie, and I met with them for coffee once, and we clicked. So then I joined pretty casually, actually, very casually, in the beginning of May.
Did you have any sense for what you were really getting yourself into?
Absolutely no clue. They said you'll be cold calling, and I'm like, all right. I never thought I'd finish college with a cold calling job, but I mean, it's being handed to me, so why not? So I kind of just went full force in.
Dude, I love that. So, all right, let's just call one. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What happened? Maybe it's your first connect, however you want to describe it. Like the first one, the Maiden Voyage. Give us the rundown.
Well, it's funny you asked, because today I was actually training new cold callers, and it was a girl's first time cold calling today, and I was her main trainee. And I was thinking, man alive, she has it so much easier than I had it 5 months ago, where she has a script and all these things. My first cold call, first day of the job, is that there's no script, and I'm in the office with the boss, and he's like, all right, well, here's a bit about what we do, and here's our market, commercial real estate brokers, and just give him a call. And I was like, okay, like, do you have a script? Do you have anything? He's like, not really. Just kind of ask him a few questions about what they do and try and tell them what we do. And I was like, all right. So I just went right in there, and definitely sounded like an absolute moron, but I've improved since then.
Yeah. And what were, first week, what did you feel were the major things that you learned after a week of 500 calls? Like, what could you take from day 1 to day 5?
I say the biggest thing I learned was not to take it personally when people were just hanging up in my face. That was never a thing that I actually struggled with too much. It was kind of, I went into it with that expectation, and I definitely learned that it was an expectation that was upheld, where I can't take it personally. And I say another one is just honestly just trying new things. Instantly from the first day, the CEO and the COO were both like, hey, success is not getting a demo right now. Success is failing and learning what's working, what's not working, and just being really agile and quick on your feet.
So that is an incredibly amazing outlook, like from your leadership, right? Because if you were expectations and reality, right, there's just got to be that sense of we're trying to learn and trying to iterate. So, if you're out there thinking, okay, I'm going to go into an SDR job, you've got to think about what you're walking yourself into. Are you walking into an established firm that's got all the tools, the process, the scripts, those things? Or are you going into this startup environment where you're responsible for learning and developing and kind of building the train as you're riding it, right? And when you think about, coming out of college, and if you want to get into sales, have a little bit of self-awareness for the environment that fits you better, right? Like if you're a bit of a cowboy and you can handle just rejection, figuring things out, go the startup route. But if you need a little bit more process, a little bit more structure, you might want to go somewhere that's a little bit more well-defined. A little bit of a side note there, but I love that. Just that ability to figure things out. So I think anyone who is in the cold calling game wants to know, what did you find? What were those little things you found that opened people up to stay on a little bit longer, right? Like not get the demo, but like get people to not just hang up with you and stick around for maybe 30 seconds for a minute.
Yeah. I say a couple of things. One is, I actually got it from your buddy. Is it Justin Michael? Is that?
Yeah. Big shout out, Justin Michael. Yeah. He's been on the show. He's got the Justin Michael method. Please check him out. He's fantastic.
Yeah, so I read his content in my first day of cold calling. It was great, and one of the things he said in that was, you've worked so hard to get this person on the phone. Don't give up so easily. So your natural instinct immediately is when you get someone on the phone and as soon as they sound bothered or uninterested, you want to hang up because you feel like you're being a nuisance. And I discovered that, at this point, I'm already on the phone. I've got nothing to lose. Like, if they're not interested, just trying to ask those provoking questions that just keeps them on the line. Just an extra 30 seconds for that extra bit of detail that can make, our product better or, our market fit better as well.
Can you give an example of one or two of those little things that turn people? Maybe that's not the right word, but, turn them from uninterested and I'm busy to, okay, I'll hang with you for a minute.
Yeah, it's funny. We were literally talking about this today with our CEO. Once again, just training this new girl, and I was giving examples of cold calls as I was actually doing the calls. And one of the things that I've realized is a really amazing question, which is a pretty obvious one as well. When someone's not interested, saying, "Hey, cool, that's great. Like we recognize we're not a fit for everyone, but what's the main reason you're not interested? Because we want to gain a better product market fit." And they're always like, well, they almost want to help you out by you recognizing that you're not perfect. Like almost like you're playing the lower guy and like he's a big guy helping you out, giving his advice on how you can improve. Sometimes I even throw in there, hey, we're a startup company trying to still establish this fit. I'd really appreciate if you could help us out. What are you using instead? How is that working for you? And almost every time when I'm admitting, the flaws that we have, they are very open to going into detail about what they're using and why perhaps they're not interested. So yeah. Yeah,
that's great. I mean, tapping into human nature is one of those things. And you mentioned Justin Michael, so we'll mention him again, like really tapping into the human psyche and how people are. If you take it away, right? Like we're not a fit for you. I totally get it. Like people be like, oh wait, automatically fight for it. Like, oh wait, you're telling me I'm not a fit. Well, maybe I am. Right. And if they fight, something's there. If they don't, then fine, let them go. Maybe it's really not a fit, but I love that, just tapping into human nature a little bit and get people to fight for it if they feel like you've taken it away from them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, the other thing I was going to say that's really changed my perspective on cold calling is I didn't realize this, but how much tone makes the world of a difference. And I mean, it's to the point where sometimes where I will literally just mimic the person's tone on the call. Where if it's like a person picks up and they're kind of like, hi, like, how can I help you? I just go, I'm like, oh, hi, like, just trying to get in touch with somebody. And I just mimic their tone to the point where I've gone to the point now where I'll call someone over in like the South, the Mid-South, and they'll pick up in their Southern drawl, like, hey, this is Sam Absalom, just giving you a call. And I sound terrible. But you know what? I mimic their action, and I do it just ever so slightly, and they always give me a little more time of day when I'm with my Southern drawl. So it's just almost mimicking people's tone and almost accent sometimes.
The Southern English drawl. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that was a bad example. Usually it's a bit better than that. I think when I'm hearing someone do it, it's a bit better.
Yeah. So you've primarily been calling on commercial real estate brokers. And I think one of the advantages we've talked about in our sessions is because they're in sales themselves, they pick up the phone quite frequently, right?
Yeah.
But they're obviously in the time for money, trying to use their time to make money business. So
yeah,
talk about some of the things that you hear, right? Like what gets someone who's obviously busy, they're usually high earners, they're, executive level type things. What are some of the things that you do to cut through?
So repeat the question again. So you're trying to figure out what now?
What are some of the things that you say to those folks to get their attention, to get them to cut through? Like
Sure.
You've talked a little bit about keeping them on the line for a second, but now we got to set the hook, right? Like what are some of those things that you're doing to get their attention?
Absolutely. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. So the biggest thing that I found is I've got them hooked as soon as they ask me what we do. So so my goal in the call, my only goal in the first 20, 30 seconds is to have them ask me, well, what is it that you do? Because as soon as they've asked that question, I've got them hooked. And at least if nothing else, I'm getting an email out of this phone call. So I say that's been the biggest point of success for me is I'll oftentimes establish that the ethos by saying, hey, look, we've been working with lots of other commercial real estate firms. They've been telling us that the software is doing X, Y, or Z. And just wanted to give you a call and just kind of like floating it up there. And occasionally they'll swat it down, but usually they'll be like, okay, well, I'm curious, like, what do you do? So I'm deliberately ambiguous. So they ask me what we do. I tell them what we do. They give, they've asked the questions and they've got to listen to my answer. And it kind of gets my foot in the door.
I'm curious on the response to what do you do? Has your answer changed over time?
Yeah, it changes. It changes every week. Because once again, we're so new. We're trying to figure out what is it that's hitting home with these brokers. We've tried all sorts of key phrases, and plenty have not worked. And we just figure out the few that do, we hang on to those. So even we found that admitting something, like I mentioned earlier, is really important. So I'll oftentimes admit saying, hey, I recognize that transactions are the heart of your business. We don't want to change that. We just want to meet you where you're at and help improve that. And immediately I'm recognizing where they're at and what's really bringing in their income, and not wanting to change it, I think has been crucial for at least our cold call pitch of just kind of piquing their interest and keeping them on the phone.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're focusing still what you do on them versus just blurting, what the Sandler would say, spilling your candy in the lobby, just throwing everything out there and spewing all of the different features and functions that the software has. Yeah, I think that's really great. So give me an example, if you can, of answering, can you tell me what you do that didn't work? You modified it and then did work.
Oh, man. It's when I first began cold calling, you hear all these generic phrases and you think, oh, that sounds so cringy. And then when you're put on the spot, you fall right back on the generic phrases. Awesome. So I found myself just using, hey, look, we're going to save you hours every week with our new product. It's a breakthrough product. It's spectacular. It's different than anything else out there. And I just found none of that stuff works because all these guys hear it 5 times a day from all the cold calls they get.
Awesome. So flip the script, right? I mean, obviously you gave me a little bit of a teaser of it, but
yeah,
how does give me another example of making it about them, right? And answering that question a different way. Yeah.
So even saying, hey, we recognize that as a broker, you have a million, or I would say hundreds of moving pieces going on in any given transaction. And we want to help you centralize that and organize it and streamline it in ways that are appropriate to streamline. And every single time, once again, anytime that I show my knowledge of the industry, I might drop an example of, moving tons of emails and documents flying around between you, your client, and your team. The more words I'm saying, especially if it's the buzzwords of the industry, they're really gonna. For example, I always use pipeline because that's a very specific word that I never really heard much until I kind of entered into the commercial broker world. So they love hearing, me talking about that pipeline and all those things, which is quite funny, but yeah.
Well, as you get deeper in sales, you'll find out that the only thing that matters is your pipeline. Your manager, your boss is always going to want to know what's the state of your pipeline, how healthy is it, how many deals, what's this in this stage. So yeah, get used to it. That's not going to go anywhere. That's
definitely a mix of me also being a fresh college grad, not just entering the CRE industry as well.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So you've been at this for a few months. It sounds like one of the big wins for you has really been crafting your message and figuring out how to have random conversations with strangers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So take it to the next thing now, right? Like, cool. You're able to have some conversations and strike it up a little bit, but let's talk about results. Getting the meeting or getting the demo is the win coming out of that, right? So let's just give the audience a quick rundown of, we talked about 500 calls per week. How many connections are you making and how many demos are you setting as a result? And how has that changed as you've crafted your messaging?
Yeah. So at first the numbers were pretty abysmal. And once again, it's obvious, the more reps I was getting, the more comfortable I was to kind of read the person I was talking to and kind of really cater the cold call to that person and their specific needs. So I find the numbers I'm hitting nowadays are probably around, let's say, 200 dials with about 30, we call it meaningfuls, which is I'm talking to someone with the intended, who is an intended target and an intended potential customer of our software. And out of those 30 people that I talk to, I'd say I'm probably getting about 10 to 15% of those guys on demos. So any day it varies from 2 to 5. And once again, it depends on what market. If I'm calling mortgage brokers, it's a bit lower. If I'm calling commercial real estate brokers, it's a bit higher because they have more time, they're more willing to talk. It really depends on the market I'm calling that day.
Yeah, those are incredible results. So when you think about going into your day now, right? I imagine, because it seems like, just talking to you, it seems like you have fun with it and you now know what it is and you take it for what it is. And it's almost like this mission or detective product to figure out what's going to make people click. But what's the mindset you need to go into your day and be successful in this type of role?
Yeah, I just go in with the mindset of like, this is a hunt and this is a game. And like, it's kind of fun. I almost find a lot of joy and in being rejected because it's quite fun. In a way, it's like someone's telling me that what I've just done or what I've just said is not good enough to convince them. So what can I do? What can I say to convince that person that our product could be a potential fit to pique their interest into a demo? So I'd say it's just that the mindset of just I literally just gamify it. Where to the point, if I want to get a sandwich, if I want to get a sandwich for my lunch break, then I'm gonna say no. I'm not gonna get a sandwich until I have 5 more conversations or 10 more conversations. And I set small goals like that the entire day. If I have I got to do another shout out. My buddy Brock Baker. He's also a GCU student with me, and him and I got hired at the same time when the first cold callers. And we spent the entire summer, 40 hours a week, cold calling together. So we would just, at the end of each day, just compete. Hey, who got higher demos? Who got more numbers? Who got better ratios? Who has a funnier story of what happened? This happened to you. That's hilarious. We laughed together. That kind of mindset turned it from a drag into actually quite a fun, 9 to 5 job.
Well, share some of those stories. What are some of the best calls you've had, or maybe the worst calls you've had that are really good stories?
Oh man, alive. Well, what we've learned since calling, especially commercial real estate brokers, is that they pick up their phone in any environment. We've literally had a guys, we've called someone and say, hey, we kind of pitch the product to them, and they're like, hey, I'm abroad right now at my friend's funeral. I'm in the middle of the service. This isn't the best time. And we just like are like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like I was like, you just make the wrong assumption. Like, oh, you're abroad for a trip. How fun. Oh no, it's not actually for a trip. It's, it's not for vacation. So stuff like that. Or for example, I've done plenty of mistakes where the robodial that we use is quite funny actually. When we're calling, we hear a beep and we go right into the pitch. But on the other end, that person has already said hello and if not, they've already identified themselves. So the other day, it was actually on like Monday this week, I was calling somebody and I was like, hi, is this Ron? And I just heard a lady's voice go, do I sound like Ron? And I was like, well, this is the end of this call. And just, stuff like that where it's quite embarrassing, but quite funny.
Oh, wow. So you didn't recover from the Ron thing, huh? You just hung up?
No, I stayed on. I wanted to hang up, but I stayed on, but I can't remember even what happened out of the call. But I've got demos once again in Southern accents. I once left a message in a voicemail in a Southern accent, and the guy called back and wanted the demo, which was pretty neat and stuff. So it's just I did not expect that. So it's just stuff like that.
That's a good topic there. What are you seeing with voicemail?
I only leave voicemails if I get a reference. So I found that if I leave voicemails without a reference, I get a 1 in 100 callbacks. It's very rare, especially, it's not a well-known firm. I'm not in a big position. I can't say, hey, I'm the CEO of this firm. It's not like that. So I think if I had those titles or in a well-known firm, it would be very different. So I don't really leave voicemails anymore unless I have a referral to from somebody in, whether it's in their department or in a completely different firm.
Got it. And where are those references coming from typically? Are you mining them from other calls or how is that coming around?
That's right. Yeah. Just calls. It's just the sheer volume that I do. For example, I occasionally will call an advisory company and I'll be, hey, I recognize that you're not in the industry, but do you have any clients who might be looking for this tool? And they go, yeah, actually we do. And we actually had that where, we got a guy who was on a demo who had a 20-man shop because his advisor had told us to reach out to him. So it's stuff like that where I am, it's really from the cold calls that I get these references and I go and I just pursue it like no man's business. I follow up as really frequently and it usually turns into at least a good conversation.
Incredible. So with 200 dials a day, that's got to take, with the robo dialer, it's probably shortening the time to get through those dials. Mm-hmm. But what are you finding in terms of a multi-channel approach? Are you using other channels? What's working? What's not?
Yeah. So we've looked into going through LinkedIn, obviously doing email blasts and that kind of stuff. The LinkedIn, once again, it hasn't worked that well for us. It's difficult to almost get a really personalized message and mass produce that message. We've done some specific targeting, target audiences in LinkedIn. And that's worked semi well. We've got a few demos through that. Once again, email. There's actually your advice that you gave to us, Josh, of just our COO sends out email blasts every week. And at first wasn't getting many callbacks, many responses, but then now every week that we send one out, we usually get 2 or 3 demos, and that's slowly ramping up. So we found that just the sheer number of different channels has been helping a bit, but we're still in the process of learning.
Yeah. And keep in mind for the audience, when he's talking about email blasts, so we're not talking about, spam emails. We're really talking about a curated list of people that we've acquired through trusted sources, whether they are firms that, the founder's been a part of or whatever. And we're curating content, right? So we're creating content for the space and we're bringing thought leadership to the space. And the advice to the group there was, this isn't going to yield results today or tomorrow. It's going to trickle in over time. And then you're going to see inflection points as you go. The first one will be like, holy crap, 5 people responded to me. And then maybe 3 months later, holy crap, 20 people responded to me. It's weird how that stuff just starts to build and gain momentum, but it's more of a content marketing play than it is more of an outbound sales play. So some of the stuff that Sam's talking about with mixing the phone with LinkedIn and maybe some personalized messaging, those are things you have to experiment with, right? And you have to be looking for what's working, what's not. And I think that's what's great about this group is they're really open to experimentation. We'll talk about something on a Friday, and by the time I come the next Friday, they'll have dozens of reps trying it, and we'll have data to go off of what's working and what's not. Have you found that culture of experimentation just makes it more tolerable, I guess.
Yeah, it's 10 times better because instead of just doing having the same script since when I came, right, to where I am now, it's changed about probably 25 times, and each time is so different, and we're picking up things that work, things that don't work. Like you said, for example, we tried a new approach 2 months ago, where rather than going for the demo right on the call, we went for the just, hey, can I just send you an email? And then follow up from that email. And we learned that actually didn't work because people wouldn't pick up a phone a second time. However, what we got from that was, hey, we actually figured out how to get decent emails that are going to pique people's interest enough, because to that point, we actually were not in, at all getting enough responses from our emails. So it's stuff like that where we're learning, okay, what email's working, what's not, and so on.
Very cool. So let's pivot a little bit into, what do you want? What are your goals? You're obviously taking a role that's extremely challenging and takes really thick skin. Not everyone can do what you're doing. So how does this help you as a stepping stone for whatever you want to do next?
Yeah. So one of the main reasons why I chose this company was because the CEO and the COO were so verbal and so direct about wanting to pour into me and just teach me to think at a higher level than most 22-year-olds are capable of thinking like. How do I begin thinking like a CEO as a fresh college grad? So when I'm a CEO in however many years or decades time, that it's going to be not a super difficult transition. So it's the intentional mentoring. So in terms of my goals, I mean, I'm just in this spot in my life where I'm just trying to be a sponge and just soak up every piece of information that I can get. Do I want to stay in sales? Do I want to transfer to product? I'm very interested in learning about being a product manager, and I'm kind of, my hands are in two different jars right now of my company of one sales, one product. So, definitely, like you said, Josh, just like I'm at a point where, as a 22-year-old, I'm just here to learn and here to pick up, what do I admire about this person? I want to be like this person in this way and this other person in that other way.
Yeah, what's so fantastic, and I think, there are obviously negative perceptions of sales out there. There's plenty of them that exist, and that's because, people do slimy stuff. They don't go at it the right way. They don't have the right mindset. But I can tell you that mindset right there is going to help you win no matter what. Because think about it. You said, do I want to go into product? Well, you have the ability to go and elicit the voice of the customer because you know how to go communicate with strangers, right? You can go to anyone, pick up the phone, have a conversation with your customer, which is going to be way easier than a cold call, but still that skill set, that ability to test and read people and pick it up, that'll help you if you decide that product development is somewhere you want to go. Like, how to draw out the voice of the customer. And I think you can hang your hat on that for a very long time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that I've been intentional about learning. I just want to pick up all the sales strategies now. So even if I'm not in sales in 10 years time, I can still use part of that selling, right, to sell myself.
Yeah. One of the things I think that people don't understand as much is just the pace and what it really is like to work in a startup. So anyone out there who maybe is considering a startup role, what should they know about working in a startup environment?
Oh man, there's a million things pop into my brain. Yeah, for starters, it's the direct contact that I get, like I said before, right, with our CEO and our COO, the direct contact that I get with them and the constant conversations. I text them every day. That kind of stuff is so rare, where our CEO has been in commercial real estate for 38 years now. And the fact that a mere 22-year-old is talking to someone in his 60s with so much experience is ridiculous. Even the guys who are in their mid-30s are still finding immense value in that. So I'd say that's been one of the biggest things is just how flat the organization of the structure of the structure of our firm is and whatnot. So I'd say that's been one of the biggest benefits is there's not as many rules. There's a lot more ambiguity. There's a lot more room to grow. If I want to go into product tomorrow, they'll say, okay, yes, complete your sales quota, but then go into product. So it's a lot easier to transition around. It's just I'm enjoying the flexibility that it offers.
Very cool. And on the flip side, like, what are some of the things that you would put up as warning signals for someone? Once again, not as much structure in my specific role, right? Where like I was the first sales associate at the company, so they were, in a way, they were kind of like, well, we don't exactly know what to
what to expect from your role. So we're going to try and help figure it out with you. So I definitely would have valued some even like a few other mid sales guys pouring into me and stuff like that. And I've had two of those. I've had you, and I've also had another sales guy at a company who's poured into me a lot. But I think having a structure, especially the first couple of years out of college, would have been helpful. But I've had to just kind of figure it out on my own and kind of go from there.
You mentioned earlier that you're training someone. So talk to me about that. How do you've just said one of the values is being able to just kind of test and iterate and learn on the fly. How much are you trying to instill that mentality versus, hey, listen, this is what works?
That's a really good question. It's almost like the first week, I'm just like, hey, here's a script. It's my script. It's not going to be your script, but for right now, let's use it as yours. Because right now, you don't know what you're talking about. You just follow the general outline of this. But for example, it was one of the girls it was a girl's actually very first date working with us this morning. And I was in charge of training her. So just talking with her. And I said to her on the calls, I was like, hey, look, like, don't look at me when you're looking at these calls to like ask me for like, hey, what should I say now? Like, that's just between you and the customer. And like, this is where you have to have the logic, the rational thinking, just talk from who you are and, what even your very little knowledge of the product and the customer. And so I say a lot of it has been like instilling the company culture of this is on you. Like you decide how quickly you succeed and how quickly like you iterate, are you confident in failing with and moving forward and from that and stuff.
Awesome. Listen, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your approach, your mentality, and the effort that you're putting into everything here and doing this. Like this can be uncomfortable for some people. So I appreciate you doing that. I had a few takeaways just from talking to you. Like, if you're going to be out there, you're going to be making a lot of cold calls, a lot of phone calls as a part of your sales gig. Don't take it personally. That is a big one, right? Like, just it's part of the game. And that was the second one. It's a game. Make it a game. Figure out, what you can do to gamify the system. I love the fact that you did two things. You set competition with your peers and you set small little goals for yourself. Like, I'm not going to have my sandwich until I do this. So that's a really cool one. And the other one I really liked was don't give up too early. That was great. Because, listen, we all going to call people. They're going to pick up the phone. They're like, listen, it's not a good time. I'm busy. But the fact that I made contact, I might as well give it a go. That's a really, really good advice for people. I really, really dig that. So those are great tips for everybody. Before I let everybody go here, a couple references that Sam made, I want to just go back to. So we talked about Justin Michael. He is Justin Michael of, what is his book? Tech-Based Sales. Check it out. We have an episode of Love Selling Hate Sales with him. So please look that up and give him a shout out. We also talked about the CEO of CRE One Source, Craig Coppola, has also been on the show. So check him out. Another episode of Love Selling Hate Sales. That would be fantastic. Sam, if anyone wants to talk to you about CRE One Source, where should they go to find you?
Good question. LinkedIn. It's the best place. Samuel Absalom, ABSALOM. And that's probably the best place. Yeah.
Yeah. You'd love to have an inbound, right?
I'd love to. Yeah, come on, please. Someone please send me an inbound. I will respond so quickly. There
we go. So if you're a commercial real estate broker, or if you are a lender in the commercial real estate space, financing, mortgage broker, whatever, Sam's your guy. Make sure you hit him up. He'll test some of his methodologies on you.
Please.
Well, Sam, thank you for joining the show. It was great to have you.